Yo, what's up? NFL is back. We're here. Quarterbacks, week one NFL season. I'm so ready to get into this. Been waiting for NFL all summer long, ever since, really since sports has been gone, just because, that's the one we're all waiting for, especially with DraftKings. I'm so excited. We're here. We're ready to break it down for all of you. If you're new to this channel, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notification bell, leave a comment. All those things really help me out. Really helped me grow this channel. We've had a ton of growth throughout NBA season and NASCAR season, and now we got NFL, which is the biggest sport. I'm going to be giving out a ton of content every single week. I think I got 11 videos per week planned, so I'm going to have a video for every single position. I'm going to have one for all the showdowns. I'm going to have one for cash rankings, top stack top stack video, and injury note video. I think that's it. There might be one more I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure that's all of that. If you want to subscribe to more of my content, you can always go out and check out my Patreon. I'll put the description below. For only $10 a month, you're gonna get an article for every single position every week, along with show for every single showdown. So Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night showdown, you're going to get an article for all of that as well. And you're going to get all of my injury notes. You're going to get my cash rankings, my top stack rankings, and my matchup rankings. So be sure to go check all of that out. It's only $10 a month. It's a lot of content. Put a lot of hard work into that. So be sure to check out that. I think that's really all I got to say. You can follow me on social media. I'll put that in the description too. Give me a follow over there on Twitter. But yeah, let's get into this. We're going to go over all the matchups for quarterbacks. We're going to go over all the lines, everything that's important. So we're going to start out with most expensive guy and our former reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson. The Baltimore Ravens start out the season against the Cleveland Browns. Lamar's $8,100 on DraftKings, so that is going to make him a GPP only play for me. I would not play Lamar Jackson in any sort of cash games. He's just too expensive. Quarterback, the ranges from the amount of points scored is very, very narrow, and so you don't need to play expensive quarterbacks in cash. If there's a way to get to them, you can, but I don't think if you're able to land on a Lamar or Mahomes isn't on this slate, then you probably should just go up. I would just go upgrade a different position. So, but yeah, so they play the Browns, and we're gonna go over the offense versus defensive line. So the Ravens have one of the best offensive lines in the league, where it's Ronnie Stanley, Bradley Bozeman, Matt Skura, DJ Fluker, and Orlando Brown Jr. It grades out as one of the best offensive lines in the league. But the defensive line for Cleveland is very good and very underrated. Olivier Vernon, Larry Ogunjobi, Sheldon Richardson, Myles Garrett, and Adrian Claiborne is a very good group. And it actually ends up giving the Baltimore Ravens offensive line a negative matchup. I don't think a lot of people are going to think that coming in. They're just going to see the Browns, last year they sucked. They let everybody down, but this was a group that was all completely brand new together. They're young, and now they're with better coaching, and I think this is going to be a defensive line that's going to be good this year. And especially with the addition of Adrian Claiborne, that's a good one for them, just to have an extra pass rusher. So the pass rushing it's going to be a tough one for Lamar to overcome. And then we go look at the wide receivers, which we all know aren't really that impressive for Lamar Jackson. We got Marquise Brown, Miles Boykin, and Willie Snead out of the slot, and they're going to be matching him against Denzel Ward, Greedy Williams, and Kevin Johnson. And that is also going to be a negative matchup for the Baltimore Ravens or for Lamar Jackson. So he's already going into two negative matchups here in Cleveland. I think Cleveland's going to be a better team this year, and people realize, especially their defense. I think their offense will be better, but I think their defense is going to be very good this year. So I wouldn't expect some massive game from Lamar Jackson here. If we go over to the tight end, this is obviously Lamar Jackson's favorite target, Mark Andrews. Now, this is the one who does look very, very good for Lamar Jackson. B.J. Goodson at linebacker, Malcolm Smith at linebacker, and Sione Takitaki at linebacker. I hope I said that name right. It grades out very positively for Mark Andrews, as you can see there. He's just, he's one of the best tight ends in the league, emerged last year. He's going to get a ton of targets. So that is a good spot for Lamar Jackson. If I'm making a stack, I probably want to go Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and then maybe we'll go Lamar Jackson to Marquise Brown, just because we know the ceiling that Marquise Brown carries, but I don't like his matchup. But yeah, I think Lamar Jackson is kind of in a tougher spot than people realize. We go look at the safeties. We got Carl Joseph and Ronnie Harrison, newly acquired for Cleveland, starting, and that against the safeties against the wide receivers is also a negative matchup. So Lamar Jackson has a lot of negative matchups. On average, because of the great matchup that Mark Andrews has, he's going to average it's going to end up being a positive matchup for Lamar Jackson, but not that positive. The game total is 48.5, which is a medium game total on the day. It's not it's not the highest, but it's also not the lowest, the next game we'll talk about. But Lamar still looks fine. I think they're like a 7-point favorite in this game though, so I think they're going to be running the ball a lot. So I don't know how great of a play I'd really want to go to Lamar Jackson. It's just a tough matchup, and I don't think there's like going to be a super high scoring game. So I don't know how much I'm excited to really play Lamar, especially for $8,100. He was cheaper than of course, it's Lamar Jackson. And he does bring you that rushing upside because he's Lamar Jackson, but still not someone I really, really want to get after. Up next, we got Baker Mayfield for the Cleveland Browns. He's only 5,700, which is going to make it a little bit interesting for me just because I do think that Baker is a better quarterback than people give him credit for. I think last year he was in a really rough position with that just garbage offensive line, terrible coaching, and just new receivers. So I think that he's in a much better spot this year. But still, when we go look at the offensive line versus defensive line, it is going to be actually a positive line for the positive matchup for the offensive line. I mean, they drafted Jedrick Wills in the draft, and they signed Jack Conklin from Tennessee, one of the better offensive tackles in the league. So the offensive line is very much improved. Yeah, Baltimore is a very good defensive line, but still they're not like exactly what they were. We go to his receivers, who we have Odell at wide receiver 1, Rashard Higgins is wide receiver 2, and Landry out the slot. I don't really expect a lot of targets to go to Rashard Higgins, so I'm not really too worried about his matchup. But Odell and Jarvis Landry matchups are tough, especially Odell's especially Jarvis Landry's up against Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey is a premier elite corner. Both him and Peters actually were both Hall of Famers, Pro Bowlers last year. So they're both tough matches for both Beckham and Landry, but I definitely like Beckham's matchup better because Marcus Peters does have this like boom bust sort of mentality when it comes to corners. Like it feels like he's either just getting a ton of picks or he's getting torched. So I don't love the matchups too much for the receivers versus the corners, and when you go look at it overall, it is a pretty negative matchup there. One of the worst on the opening slate, honestly, for wide receivers versus the cornerbacks overall. So I don't love that matchup. And then Austin Hooper is the starting tight end for the Cleveland Browns. He's got to go up against Patrick Queen, Malik Harrison, and Anthony Levine. So that actually grades out as a positive matchup for Austin Hooper as well, but still I think I just think Austin Hooper's probably third in line for targets, so I wouldn't really worry too much about the Austin Hooper matchup. For me, it's more about the Landry and Odell one, and then of course the offensive defensive line is so important. We don't want bad negative defensive line matchups. Then we go to the safeties for Baltimore, Chuck Clark and Deshaun Elliott with the Earl Thomas leaving. So you have Baker Mayfield. The wide receivers grade out negatively against the corners as well. So this actually ends up being a negative matchup for Baker Mayfield. But I don't hate going to Baker Mayfield as much because they are underdogs in this game. If the game script is very negative or very positive for them, they're going to be playing from behind the whole game, so it's going to be a lot more throwing. And for 5,700 for someone who's just going to be playing from behind, I don't hate going to that, especially in cash. In GPP, I think the upside's a little bit limited because I still think it's going to be a low scoring game, and I think that it's just a game that isn't gonna. It's just. The matchup's tough, and it's a low-scoring game. But in cash, I think he's fine because he's 5,700, and we know he's going to be playing from behind. He's going to have to throw the ball a lot. So I think Baker Mayfield's fine for that. But for GPPs, not really too interested. Up next, we have Josh Allen, one of my favorite plays in quarterback on the slate. He's actually on the cover of this video. $6,500, which feels like a little bit much, but Josh Allen, we all know, comes with some rushing upside. But in New York Jets today, the Jets suck. I mean, they're just bad. When we go to the offensive line versus defensive line matchups, it is a positive matchup for the Bills, not by a ton, but it is positive. They have a good, solid offensive line, and the Jets' defensive line really isn't anything too special. So I'm not really too worried about the pass rush coming in for Josh Allen in this game. When it comes to the wide receivers, we got Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, one of the better wide receiver cores in the entire league. I think underrated as well. I think John Brown and Cole Beasley don't get enough credit. They're actually pretty solid players. And then, of course, the addition of Stephon Diggs, who are going to be matching up against Pierre Desir, Blessuan Austin, and Brian Poole. Yeah. Okay, so Stephon Diggs is a receiver that we all know is great at getting separation. He's a very good route runner, and he's a very good deep threat. Josh Allen was one of the most inaccurate deep passers in the league last year. Pretty much the most inaccurate out of all starters. It was bad. So we've seen a lot of in training camp that he's been working on it and been getting better. So if that's a thing, this Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs stack just feels perfect. It just feels way too good. So I absolutely love going there. These corners suck. Like, they're just not good. You have a positive line for the offensive line, so you're gonna give him time to throw the ball. Like, I like all of them. I like going to all of them in stacks. Well, maybe not Beasley because Beasley doesn't have the upside, but just when for me, for me, picking quarterbacks, when I start to like the wide receivers, that makes me really start to like the quarterbacks. And so I really like the wide receivers this week for Buffalo. So that really does make me like Josh Allen, especially with the rushing upside that he always brings. I think he's a very good GPP play. I think he's a good cash play. He's a little bit expensive for cash, but I still think he's a good cash play. Dawson Knox is a tight end, but he doesn't really get the ball thrown to. He's probably number 4 in targets, so I'm not really too worried about the tight end matchup here. And then we get the safeties, Bradley McDougald and Marcus May, who are actually decent safeties. But it's still a positive matchup versus the receivers. And then we have Josh Allen with a very nice positive matchup, one of the most positive matchups on the entire slate. The one problem with this game, though, is it's a hard game to game stack. I wouldn't necessarily want to game stack this game. If I want to make a stack, I'm going Josh Allen to one wide receiver. I'm going Josh Allen to John Brown. I'm going Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. Because this is the lowest total game on the slate. It's 2 low-scoring teams. And Buffalo is also favored, so this could turn into a run script game where we're just getting a lot of Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. So I would be a little cautious there, but the matchup just does look great for Josh Allen. I think he's in just a fantastic spot. We just got to hope that it just, they don't score twice on the ground and then they're up by 14 for the rest of the game and they're just running the ball out. We got to hope that one of those early scores is like maybe a deep pass from Allen to John Brown or a deep pass from Allen to Stephon Diggs. And this Josh Allen Stephon Diggs stack is going to be a higher owned stack, I believe, in week 1. So look at that Josh Allen to John Brown stack. Not a lot of people are going to look at that. That's going to be one to definitely maybe exploit. Sam Darnold. This one's going to be surprising. For you guys, I've obviously gone over this, but Sam Darnold's not as bad of a week 1 play as I think people think he is. He's only $5,500, and yeah, he's playing the Bills defense, but Sam Darnold's $5,500 in a game where he's going to be playing from behind. The offensive line versus defensive line, yeah, I'm going to surprise you. It's actually positive for the Jets. It's more positive for the Jets than it was for the Bills. So that offensive line for the Jets much improved this year, and the defensive line for the Bills, especially pass rush wise, wasn't even that great last year. A very good run defense, but pass rushing defensive line maybe not the best in the league. So Sam Darnold's offensive line versus defensive line matchups actually positively pretty good. So when we go to wide receivers, this is the problem. The problem's the receivers for Darnold. Brashad Perryman, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder. Jamison Crowder's playing out of the slot. He's probably going to get the majority of the targets because he ain't throwing to Brashad Perryman and Denzel Mims, bro. Well, Denzel Mims might not play. That's another one. Be sure to check out my injury video on Saturday because this is someone who's questionable and may not play. That'll make it even worse for Darnold, I think. Even though Mims doesn't have a grade or anything because he's a rookie, but still. The cornerbacks for the Buffalo Bills are very good. Tre'Davious White, Pro Bowler last year, top 5 corner for sure. Then you have Levi Wallace, who's just a solid option as a number 2 guy, and then Teron Johnson in the slot. And that's the problem. Teron Johnson's going to be playing in the slot, and that's where Jamison Crowder plays. And Jamison Crowder is he's going to get targeted. He's probably going to get 10 targets a game. We know that Sam Darnold loves passing up the middle to the slots and to the seam routes. That's where Jamison Crowder, and then we'll talk about Chris Herndon in the second play. So if you're getting a decent positive matchup there, which if you want to go to a one-on-one matchup, it's a very positive matchup for Jamison Crowder right there. So he is someone that actually looks like a solid play in tournaments and everything, because I don't think Crowder's going to get a lot of ownership, but we'll talk about him in the receiver video, obviously. You got to stay tuned for that one. Chris Herndon at tight end. All right, Chris Herndon, for 2 years now, has been talked about in training camp so much. It's he's such a great athlete. He's so good. He's Sam Darnold's favorite target, and it makes sense. Like I said, he loves the slots. He loves the seam routes. He loves the guys up the middle. Chris Herndon is that. Chris Herndon's super athletic. He's going up against He's going up against 3 linebackers that aren't great at coverage outside of Matt Milano, who's fantastic at coverage. Raekwon McMillan. No, sorry, wrong. AJ Klein, Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano. I'm worried about the Matt Milano one a little bit, but that's really it. If you know anything about the Bills' defense in the past, they don't like giving up the big plays. So the deep routes and stuff that Brashad Perryman's going to have are going to get shut down. Now, but they're willing to give up stuff up the middle. So I think that if you're going to run a Sam Darnold stack this week, which I think is bold, I don't know if I'd go there. Probably not someone I'm really going to be looking to stack this week. But that's one to go to. I do like going to Herndon or Crowder. Those are 2 I definitely like going to. This ends up being a very, very slightly... Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I haven't even gone over safeties yet. Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde, one of the best safety tandems in the entire league. That's going to be a negative matchup for the receivers. But this does end up being a slightly positive matchup for the New York Jets and Sam Darnold, which I think is coming as a shock. It came as a shock to me when I was doing this, and it's going to come as a shock to a lot of people. I think it's going to go under owned, but I don't think the thing about Sam Darnold is I don't think he's a good tournament play because I just don't think the ceiling's there. I don't think he hits that ceiling. Again, lowest total game on the entire slate at 39. This is just not a game where I just expect him to just really pop off. Yeah, he's going to be playing from behind. I think he's an okay cash play, but I think there's other guys that are better you could just get to in cash with better overall matchups. So I think he's okay, but probably someone I'm still not going to get to just because I don't like the game script at all, and I think there's better options on this slate. Up next, we're going to go to Cam Newton, who I think might end up being one of the highest owned quarterbacks, especially in cash, because they're playing the Miami Dolphins, who have this notorious, they have this reputation of just, they're bad. And I mean, they've been bad for a while, but this year they're definitely better. When we go look at the offensive versus defensive line, that's the one thing the Patriots still do have, an absolutely elite offensive line. It is the best offensive versus defensive line matchup on the entire slate is New England, and that's what Cam Newton gets to play behind. But the problem for Cam Newton is his wide receivers. You got N'Keal Harry, who just didn't look good last year. We'll see what happens. Damiere Byrd and Julian Edelman. Edelman's good. I mean, we know he's reliable, but that's never been the guy that Cam Newton's wanted to throw to. I mean, if you remember his time in Carolina, he loved passing the ball to his running backs. He loved passing the ball to the big receivers. So that's a N'Keal Harry guy here. When we go look at the cornerback matchups, this is the spot on the defense of Miami that's very good. Their secondary is very good. You have Byron Jones and Xavier Howard, one of the best corner tandems in the league. And then on the slot, they drafted Noah, I can't say his last name, Noah Igbinoghene. I don't know. But he's supposed to be pretty good first-round draft pick. They'll be playing him in the slot against Julian Edelman. And I guess if there's one spot to look for a Cam Edelman stack, or a Cam stack, probably go Julian Edelman, because I don't think N'Keal Harry's doing anything against Byron Jones or Xavier Howard, whichever one he gets. I don't know who's going to be the number one corner there. I'd assume Byron Jones probably, but they're both very, very good. So I don't like that matchup at all for those receivers, and that scares me off a little bit, Cam, especially for a tournament GBP. So they don't use a tight end, so I don't worry too much about that. And then at safety, you got Eric Rowe, Bobby McCain. These guys are actually better safeties than people want to give them credit for. Last year, yeah, Miami got torched a lot, but it wasn't just because of these were the two guys on the team, because Howard was out all year, that were actually pretty solid. Rowe and McCain, they're not great, but they're not bad. So they end up being pretty solid. It ends up being a positive matchup for the receivers though, but not by a lot. And it ends up being a slightly positive matchup for Cam Newton. That offensive line is great, but it's a struggle when it comes to all the other spots. The other spots are rough, so I think Cam's good because we all know. Well, see, that's the thing. Is Cam really going to be running around as much as we've seen him in the past? This line isn't they're favored by a good bit, and this line isn't that positive. I think Cam's someone I'm staying away from in GPPs in week 1, and it could burn me, but I think that he's not someone who I just don't like the guys he's throwing the ball to at all. I don't think they're going to really go off. I hate the cornerback wide receiver matchups in this game, and even against the safeties too isn't great, and I'm not feeling that as well. I think he's a good cash play, though, because he has the rushing upside, and he's the price range we look to go for when we're going with cash quarterbacks. So I think he's probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite cash options at quarterback, but still not someone I really want to get a ton of, in GPPs at least. Ryan Fitzpatrick did get named a starter this morning. Happy to happen before I record this video, because I didn't want to be making a video about Ryan Fitzpatrick, and then Tua got named a starter. So, but he's only $5,300 on DraftKings, very, very cheap. The offense versus defense line is not going to look that pretty. One of the worst matchups for the offensive line in the entire league. So I don't like that as well at all. We know that New England still is a great defensive line. I mean, Chase Winovich and company is just good. Lawrence Guy, Dietrich Weiss, all good. The wide receivers: Devontae Parker, Preston Williams, Jakeem Grant. We saw Devontae Parker torch Stephon Gilmore last year, but I don't think that happens again. Everyone was hyping him up, but Gilmore was defensive player. He had one bad game. And then J.C. Jackson's the other corner on the other side against Preston Williams. 2 very, very good shutdown corners. And then Jonathan Jones in the slot against Jakeem Grant. I don't like going to any of those receivers. It's in a super tough matchup. People are going to say all week, oh, they did it last year, they can do it again. They probably won't. So yeah, the receivers grade out very bad against them. And then Mike Gesicki in the tight end spot. I think Gesicki's going to get more volume this year. He'll probably get some more passes, but still, it's just not that great. He does have a positive matchup here. That's his only positive matchup that Fitzpatrick's getting. So I just don't really want to go there as much. And then it comes to the safeties. You have Adrian Phillips and Devin McCourty, who are just great safeties. We didn't see a lot of Patrick Chung. Patrick Chung struggled last year. Now he's gone. That's going to be better for New England. So Adrian Phillips and Devin McCourty is a tough matchup, negative matchup for the wide receivers. And this makes this, I think, the worst matchup on the slate for me. Yeah, worst matchup on the slate for me is Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's in, just the total's not that high. He's going to be playing from behind more than likely, but total's not that high. We know Ryan Fitzpatrick, the upside he has, because he just launches the ball, but I just don't. I hate the matchup. Like, yeah, I know we torched New England last week. I didn't play Ryan Fitzpatrick last year in Week 17 against New England, but I don't care. Like, I trust that his defense is still very good. It's probably not as good as it was last year, and I just trust that they're going to come out and shutting down this team. And maybe New England, this is the defense we want to play on this slate, not Ryan Fitzpatrick. So, yeah, that's what I got to say about Fitzpatrick. Up next, we're going to go to probably the most popular game stacks in Week 1 are going to be Russell Wilson and Matt Ryan stacks. So Russell Wilson, $7,000. That's expensive for a quarterback, but I mean, we just know the upside Russell Wilson brings because of his receivers. He does actually have a negative matchup in offense versus defensive line. Offensive line took a little bit of a step back this year, so not looking too great for that, but it's not that negative where it scares me. It's just a little bit slightly negative matchup. I'm not really too worried about that. I'm never too really worried about the I mean, I guess I'm worried about Grady Jarrett because he's one of the top 3 or top 5 like pass rusher D linemen in the freaking league. So just yeah. But I'm just not too worried about the defensive line. The wide receivers, we have DK Metcalf, wide receiver 1, Dorsett's wide receiver 2, and Lockett's wide receiver 3. But we know Dorsett probably gets 1 or 2 targets a game. It's going to be all Metcalf and Lockett. And they get a great matchup here against Isaiah Oliver, rookie AJ Terrell, who got torched in the college football championship, and Darqueze Dennard in the slot. So I like going to all those receivers. I don't even mind taking shots on Philip Dorsett Week 1. This is going to be a game where this one, the higher total games on the slate. We'll get into that. Tight end Greg Olsen, I mean, he's got a tough match against Deion Buchanan and Deion Jones, but I mean, I just don't think he's going to get the, I mean, I guess he'll get the ball some. He's going to probably get 4 or 5 targets a game, and I don't know, Will Dissly could end up starting over him, and I don't think anyone would be that shocked. Like, he was really good last year, and Olsen's like 50 now, so that's a slightly positive match for Russell Wilson. And then we got Ricardo Allen and Keanu Neal in the safeties who haven't looked very good in a while, so this is a positive matchup overall for Russell Wilson, because Atlanta's defense just sucks. So I do like going there. It's one of the higher total games on the slate at 48.5. I think this is a game, it's a very close line, like I think 1 point difference. I think Atlanta's like a 1 point underdog right now, so expect this game to be a shootout. I don't expect this game script to go bad it's going to be good for both quarterbacks. We'll get into Ryan in a second, but I do like Russell Wilson, and I love stacking him with either Metcalf or Lockett, or maybe even 2, and then maybe going like Metcalf and sneakily throwing in a Dorsett, or Lockett and sneakily throwing in a Dorsett. Like, those are just the guys that, like, Week 1, there's always some, like, random wide receivers that just go off, and that's, like, someone who could go off. Philip Dorsett was always someone I played New England last year, like, on every once in a while, and he just never did it for me, but now he's got a quarterback that's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league, great down-the-field thrower. Like, Brady just wasn't that, and he isn't that anymore. So I do like going to Russell Wilson here. In stacks, only GBP, not a cash guy. It's just too expensive for me. Cash quarterback. Same thing with Matt Ryan. Too expensive for a cash quarterback for me. But I'm telling you, this is going to be the most expensive, most popular stack in Week 1 is going to be probably to Matt Ryan to Ridley. So Ryan's offensive line is very nice positive matchup against that. Like, Seattle's defense is going to be very good this year in the back 7. The front 4, bad. Like, not good. Like, the pass rushing sucks for Seattle. So that's a great matchup for Matt Ryan. You give Matt Ryan time with Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, ooh, watch out. Like, yeah, I know it's a tougher matchup for those guys, but I'm really not all that worried. Julio Jones, highest graded receiver in the league last year. Calvin Ridley, great number 2. They're going to be guarded, though, by some good corners. Quentin Dunbar, Shaq Griffin, very good corners. And you got Trey Flowers in the slot, who sucks, but I'm not really expecting a ton of volume to Russell Gage, so that one doesn't really worry me too much. But yeah, Quentin Dunbar, Shaquille Griffin, great corners. This is a great matchup. But somehow the wide receivers do barely edge out the corners. They are a good match. It's a good wide receiver versus defense matchup here, so I do like going to these guys. Hayden Hurst at the tight end is a sneaky play on Atlanta this time. Like, everyone's just going to be going, if they're going full game stack, they might go Matt Ryan, Julio, Ridley, and then run it back with, like, Lockett. Well, why don't you throw in, like, Hayden Hurst, bro? Like, I mean, these are the guys that he's in a good matchup too. KJ Wright, I mean, yeah, Bobby Wagner's elite, but KJ Wright hasn't been that great recently. Jordan Brooks is a rookie, so that grades out as a positive matchup. And Bobby Wagner's a great hitting linebacker. He's not, like, a great coverage linebacker. So, I think Hayden Hurst is in a good spot too. And then we have Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs at strong safety and free safety, one of the better safety tandems in the league, maybe the best. This one is still a slightly positive matchup just because of how good Julio and Ridley are. The matchup overall isn't as positive for Matt Ryan as it is for Russell Wilson, but it's still very, very positive, and I like the fact that he's going to get, like, no pressure at all. He's going to have all day to find Julio freaking Jones. I love the Julio stack. People are going for Ridley this week because he's cheaper, but Matt Ryan to Julio, you just can't ever go wrong. It's freaking Julio Jones. He's one of the best receivers to ever play the game. So Matt Ryan's still someone I definitely like to go after. Mitchell Trubisky for the Chicago Bears going up against the Detroit Lions. He's only $5,400. He got named a starter. This is someone who I just don't hate going to because I'm really not too worried about Detroit's defense that much, honestly. Offensive versus defensive line, it's negative for the Bears, but not by that much. But then we go to Allen Robinson, Ted Ginn Jr., Anthony Miller. We know Ted Ginn Jr. is probably not going to get a ton of volume, but Allen Robinson, Anthony Miller will. Anthony Miller up the slot. Allen Robinson, I don't know how worried I am about this one. I've been going up and down, honestly, ever since Detroit drafted Jeff Okudah for whoever he's going to play week 1 until I found out it was the Bears. Like, is he going to lock up Allen Robinson? Like, this is the guy that's supposed to be one of the best shutdown corners in a long time in the NFL. Is he going to shut down Allen Robinson in week 1, or is Allen Robinson going to torch him because he's a rookie? I don't know. That's a tough one to break down. And then we have Justin Coleman going to be guarding Anthony Miller in the slot, which might be the way to go, honestly. I think Anthony Miller's going to go overlooked this week. But, I mean, it's the Bears. Not a team I really want to stack all that much. Overall, it's a negative matchup for Trubisky. I just don't want to go there as much. I mean, he's okay for cash because he's so cheap, but I just don't. It's a low-scoring total, one of the lower ones on the slate. They are going to be playing from behind, though. That is one thing I will say, but it's Mitch Trubisky. Like, he's just not good. He's just not that good, and I don't love the matchup anyway. So now, on the other hand, we got Detroit and Matthew Stafford, who I think is someone who's going to go overlooked this week because everyone still gives this Chicago Bears defense from like 2 years ago this reputation of being so good. And they're good, but they aren't like that good anymore. The offensive line upgraded this year with the addition. Oh, I'm sorry. It downgraded this year with the loss of Graham Glasgow, and it's a negative matchup, but barely. Like the Chicago defense line is Khalil Mack, and like that's it. Like Akeem Hicks, a good run stuffer, but not a good pass rusher. Roy Robertson Harris, Robert Quinn's not as good as he used to be. John Jenkins, like these guys really aren't that good. So Khalil Mack's really the one you got to worry about, but it's not something that's just gonna just because it's just him, it doesn't really worry me all that much. The wide receivers, we have Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, Danny Amendola. We don't really worry about Amendola that much because he isn't going to get targeted too much, but Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones Jr. going up against Kyle Fuller, one of the most overrated corners in the league, and then Jalen Johnson. So Kyle Fuller is really not that good. Kenny Galladay's great against Kyle Fuller is just ridiculously good. This is one of the best wide receiver versus corner matchups on the slate. It's not the best. It's not even top 3, but it's up there. I think it's top 5 for me. Yeah, it's 5th. Yeah, it's the 5th best cornerback receiver matchup on the slate. And we know Matthew Stafford loves to sling the ball. So this could be a stack that ends up working out really well. I don't even care which one we go to, Marvin Jones or Golladay. I like them both. This is TJ Hawkinson's another one, but the linebackers, the linebackers for Detroit or for Chicago are very good. Roquan Smith, Danny Trevathan. Very good. When we go look at overall, though, Matthew Stafford is one of the better overall matchups on the slate for me. I think I have him ranked, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the 5th best overall matchup Matthew Stafford does on the slate for me. So, and it's the only problem is, they're in a positive or a negative game script for Stafford, and it's a lower line. But if they get out to a big lead because Stafford's firing it off to Golladay or firing it off to Marvin Jones Jr., I mean, shoot, I don't think anyone would be that shocked. So I don't even hate getting to Stafford this week. Up next, we're going to go to Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers for the Green Bay Packers. All right, here is a stack that people are going to play every week that I'm just not going to play. Aaron Rodgers, the way they run is in a running offense now. This is a team that loves to run the ball. They're getting to the red zone and running it. Aaron Rodgers isn't putting up the fancy numbers anymore. Not at 6,300. I just don't want to go there. I mean, we'll look at the matchups anyway. It is a positive offensive line matchup for Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams has just a beautiful matchup. This is the one guy. If you are going to make an Aaron Rodgers stack, just give it to Adams. There's no one else to give it to. I mean, he's just gonna destroy Holton Hill or Dancer Hughes, whichever one he gets matched up with. Like, these corners just suck in Minnesota. So, one of the better overall 1v1 matchups is Devontae Adams versus Holton Hill week 1. But I don't think it's enough where I just want to stack it because I don't think this game turns into a shootout. I think this is a game where we have Green Bay just kind of dominating. It's kind of a higher total game. It's an overall positive matchup for Aaron Rodgers, but I still don't want to get there. I mean, they're technically not favored, but it is a closer game script, so I don't think it's gonna be a shootout game. Like, it's not gonna be like the Atlanta game, Seattle game, where it's gonna be a ton of scoring. It's gonna be more like just a close game with a lot of defense, a lot of running. So, because both these teams are very, very good rushing teams, so I just don't expect a lot from Aaron Rodgers here as a stack. I just think he's too expensive. Like, if we were getting Aaron Rodgers below 6K, that's different. Kirk Cousins, though, I don't like at all. This one guy I'm probably just gonna avoid. Like, when I play GPPs, I probably go with my max lineups. I'm probably playing about 7 quarterbacks every single week, maybe a little less or a little more depending on the week. And Kirk Cousins is just one of the guys I'm just not gonna play. I don't think I'm really gonna get Rodgers either. He's still haven't condensed my list all the way down to who I'm gonna play, but I've thrown some guys away, and Kirk Cousins is one of those. Let's go look at the matchup. It's a very, very negative offense versus defensive line matchup. I mean, they got Zadarius Smith, they got Preston Smith, they got Kenny Clark. Like, this is a good pass rushing defense, and offensive line for Minnesota sucks now. They only have Riley Reef. They're not as good as they used to be. And then you got Adam Thielen. It's really the only option. Justin Jefferson apparently hasn't been good in training camp, but he's still going to be a starter. But the problem is Adam Thielen's going to have to match it with Jair Alexander, one of the better cornerbacks in the league. Although I will say the thing about Jair Alexander is he has these moments where he's really good, like looking like a top 5 corner in the league. Then he also has these moments where he's just not, just looks like trash. So if you get a trash game from Jair Alexander, you could have a big game from Adam Thielen. But if you have the game where Jair Alexander goes off, Adam Thielen could have 5 points, and I wouldn't be that shocked. Like, 1 catch the whole game, like for Adam Thielen, and I wouldn't be that surprised. So yeah, I just don't really love going to Kirk Cousins. Like, even Kyle Rudolph, who honestly is probably gonna be the number 2 target on the start season. The matchup just isn't like. Actually, I'm sorry. The match is really good for Kyle Rudolph. I don't know. I'm thinking Oren Burks, Christian Kirksey's, Josh Jackson's a great matchup. If you are going to stack Kirk Cousins, which I don't think you should, Kyle Rudolph's the guy to go to. I just don't think you should. This is a team where they're just going to continue to run the ball up their throat with Dalvin Cook. That's what they want to do. That's what they're going to continue to do. I don't see any reason that stops. Then we have Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage in the safeties spots, and they just it's not looking good for the receivers against that. Overall, it's a negative matchup for Kirk Cousins. It's a game script that's very negative for them. I just hate that they're a rushing team. Like, if it was a bad pass defense or something and they weren't favored, I would like Kirk Cousins here, but I don't want to go there. I just don't like the matchup. I don't like the game script. I don't like that they're favored. I think it's just a running team. Kirk Cousins really isn't a guy I really ever get to a lot in GPPs. There'll be a few times where, they're playing a match where I'm like, okay, I got to play Kirk Cousins now. But for the most part, not someone I'm ever going after, especially without Stephon Diggs anymore. So I think that Cousins is just not someone I really want to get to. All right, this is the cash quarterback that I think everyone's playing this week. Or week 1. I think Cam Newton's going to be a really popular one. I think Carson Wentz is the other one. I mean, just play Washington. Washington sucks. Like, they're just bad. We go look at the offense versus defensive line matchup. Number 2 on the entire slate. Like, by a lot. Like, number 1, number 2 for New England's and Philadelphia's is just so much better than everybody else. Jalen Rager's out. This is the one thing. Philadelphia always ends up screwed with wide receivers. But let's just Deshaun Jackson against his former teams for years just goes off. And Washington's one of his former teams. He just goes off. And he gets to go up against Fabian Moreau or Ronald Darby this week, and Ronald Darby played for Philly too. They're both trash. Like, these wide receivers grade out so well against these corners. I mean, I know J.J. Arcega-Whiteside starting, but this is still the number 1, yeah, barely, but it's the number 1 wide receiver versus cornerback grade on the entire slate for me. Carson Wentz is just an absolute smash spot here. And Miles Sanders, yeah, he's a running back, but he gets pass catching abilities too. This could be a stack where you go Carson Wentz to any of them. I don't mind going. I love the Wentz to Deshaun Jackson, but also Zach Ertz. I mean, another great matchup. He's got to go up against John Bostic, washed up Thomas Davis, and Cole Holcomb. What a great positive matchup that is. It's just positive matchups everywhere for Philly. Landon Collins, Troy Apke in the secondary. Not a great positive matchup, but yeah, Carson Wentz, my number 1 matchup on the entire slate. Washington just sucks at defense. The one thing is it's going to be a negative script for Philly. They might just run the ball down the throats, which is why I think Miles Sanders is going to be the number 1 owned player everywhere, like no matter what contest. But Carson Wentz still a very good cash game play. I don't think I'm going to go there in tournaments, though. I am going to play Deshaun Jackson in tournaments, but we'll get to him more in the receiver video. But Carson Wentz probably not going to get to him too much in GPPs because I think the game script's very negative and the upside's probably limited. But in cash games, love going to him. Now let's go to the flip side of this, where Dwayne Haskins is 5,000. Like, I don't want to play Dwayne Haskins because I don't think he's good, but he's only $5,000. like it's just hard. Like he's a starting quarterback who's 5,000, and Philly's secondary, yeah, it's better now, but it's still not like that good. The offensive versus defensive line, though, very bad matchup, negative matchup for them. Then you have Terry McLaurin, who's going to go up against, who's really the only wide receiver I'm really too worried about. I'm not really worried about Dontrell Inman and maybe Steven Sims in the slot, but Steven Sims in the slot does have a really tough matchup against Nikhil Roby-Coleman. But Darius Slay was bad last year. Like, what makes everyone think that Darius Slay's all of a sudden just going to come back and be elite again just because he went on a different team? Like, yeah, maybe he wasn't as motivated. I'm sure he'll be better, but I don't think he's going to go back to his, like, elite days. Like, you don't see too often outside of, like, Richard Sherman, cornerbacks just get bad and all of a sudden they're elite again. So, and it's not like Philly's system, secondary-wise, has ever been good. So, I don't think Darius Slay's that good, and Terry McLaurin's someone I'm interested in. Like, just because I don't think this game's going to be a shootout, but Washington's going to be playing from behind, and taking some stabs at Dwayne Haskins in a stack may not be the worst thing in the world. It just might not be. He's just so cheap. Like I don't want to play him in cash. I don't want to play him in a lot of tournament lines, but like just a few. Like, because I know the upside's there. We know he has big playability. We've seen him do it at the end of the season last year. We saw him do it in college. But it's just, I don't think the matchup's as bad as people say it is. Like, I don't think the Darius Slay Terry McLaurin matchup is that bad. I think McLaurin could win that matchup all day, and I would not be surprised. I'm not worried about tight end for Washington, really. We already went over the game scripts for that game. So, I mean, they're going to be playing from behind, so Haskins is going to be throwing the ball a ton. So, I don't absolutely hate going there. I just don't think it's the worst idea in the world. Up next, Philip Rivers, $6,000. Colts, Jaguars. Another guy who's cash viable for me just because Jaguars suck. They're so bad. They're going to be the worst team in the league this year. I don't really think I've got a lot to say because I don't really want to stack this game at all. We'll go through the matchups, though, of course. Very positive matchup for the offensive line. T.Y. Hilton, Michael Pittman Jr., Paris Campbell against Trey Herndon, C.J. Henderson, D.J. Hayden. It's going to be a slightly negative matchup for the receivers for Colts. Like, they're not good receivers. What the Colts are going to win this year is just running the ball. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is about to take off this year. Jack Doyle, I think, is going to have a big year as well. Jack Doyle's actually someone I don't hate going to, playing at all. Probably not in a stack or anything, but just as like a guy you're going to throw in tournament lineups, I think he's a solid play. But we'll get to him more in tight ends. But Philip Rivers is a quarterback. I'm just really not too interested in tournaments. In cash, he's fine. Lines in the middle. They're playing from ahead. They're going to blow out this team. So I just don't think Phil Rivers is someone I really want to get to all that much. And he's 6,000. So with a new team, just not something I really want to go in week one. I think they'll win. I think they'll win by a lot, but I don't think it's going to be because Philip Rivers just goes freaking off. Philip Rivers is another guy I don't really ever play too much in GPPs. Anyway, Gardner Minshew the third. $5,800. Jacksonville Jaguars, Indianapolis Colts. Man, I love Gardner, but he's about to get replaced by Trevor Lawrence after this year. It is a terrible matchup for the offensive line. Bad matchup, offense versus defensive line. DJ Chark is an absolute stud. Then they got Chris Conley, D.D. Westbrook in a slot. Then they got Rocky Sin at cornerback, Xavier Rhodes at corner, who's trash, and Kenny Moore II at corner. I'm going to assume that the Colts are smart, and they're not going to put Xavier Rhodes on DJ Chark. Because if they put Xavier Rhodes on DJ Chark, this dude will have a 50-yard touchdown week one. He's so bad. Xavier Rhodes is bad. I still to this day have no clue how he made a Pro Bowl last year. He is so bad. And maybe we're going to get a big game from Chris Conley, who I do not hate going to, just taking because he's cheap. But I don't want to play Gardner Minshew too much, just because I think the matchups overall suck. Like the safeties for the Indianapolis Colts are pretty good, and Kari Willis and Malik Hooker. It's still a positive matchup for Gardner, surprisingly. They are going to be playing from behind, just not someone I'm really too keen on getting into. Gardner does have sneaky rushing upside ability that not a lot of people think about when it comes to Gardner Minshew, and it's just he is going to be playing from behind. If I am going to a stack with Gardner Minshew, I don't hate going to a Chark stack. That's probably the only place I'll go. I mean, I don't want to stack Chris Conley with Gardner Minshew. If I'm playing Gardner Minshew, I want to have a better out than that. But I'll play Chris Conley in lineups, and maybe if I am throwing Chris Conley in a stack, I'm doing it with Chark as well. So, I don't hate it. I think he's someone who's on my radar, but probably not one I want to go to. Now, here is my favorite game to stack this week. Everyone's going to be going to Seattle and Atlanta. Everyone's going to New Orleans and Tampa, which we haven't gotten to yet. But this Carolina, Oakland, I'm going to be saying that all year. This Carolina-Vegas Raiders game, quietly, bro, is going to be one of the ones to look for. I think more on Carolina's side, but we'll start with Derek Carr. I do like going to Derek Carr. One of the best offensive lines in the league, believe it or not, is Oakland's. They're going to grade out very, very well against that Carolina's defensive line, which their defense sucks. Carolina's defense might be the worst in the league this year. Oh, no, Jacksonville. Jacksonville and Carolina, bottom 2 defense in the league this year. They're going to be bad. Carolina's going to be in a lot of shootouts this year, and I think this is going to be one of them. The problem for me with Derek Carr is his wide receivers. So Tyrell Williams out for the season, and they're going to be starting Bryan Edwards and Henry Ruggs at 1 and 2. I don't know which one's going to be 1, which is going to be 2. I'm sure Ruggs probably ends up being number 1. I have him in a number 2 spot because it just doesn't really matter, but Ruggs will probably be number 1. And these guys are going to be guarded by trash cans. And Hunter Renfrow in the slot. Dante Jackson, garbage. He's just bad. He's going to get torched by either one of these guys. I love Derek Carr, Bryan Edwards, or Henry Ruggs stacks this week. Love it. Eli Apple's bad too. Like, finally played solid in New Orleans for a year, but the Giants, and I'm a Giants fan, so if guys suck on the Giants, I automatically say they're worse than they probably are. Eli Apple sucks. He's not good. They're going to get torched, man. They're just going to get torched. I think this is going to be a shootout game. Derek Carr stacks, I don't hate going to. Justin Burris in the slot, another one that I don't mind going with Hunter Renfrow, but Hunter Renfrow is not a guy who just ever screams upside to me. This ends up being one of the best. I think it has my fourth ranked wide receiver versus cornerback. So I do like going at those stacks, and then Darren Waller as well. One of the better tight ends. He's going to get used a lot. Probably ends up being a number 1 or 2 target leader on the team this year. So definitely someone I want to get in stacks with Derek Carr as well if I'm going there. And then the safeties, rookie Jeremy Chin and then Trey Boston's good. But this ends up being a very, very positive matchup for Derek Carr. And this is one of the higher game totals on the slate. Like, you have the few 48.5s and then it's 48. Like, they're the second highest game total on the slate. I mean, there's 3 that are tied, but they're second. The fourth. So I guess they're ranked 4th. But Derek Carr, to any of these guys, I love going to, and it's Derek Carr. No one wants to play Derek Carr, so play Derek Carr this week. This is going to be a game that's going to be a shootout. And then here we go with Teddy Bridgewater, where this is another one I just absolutely love, $5,900 as well. These guys are cheap too. Like, they're good cash plays. Also, I do not. If you're playing, in all honesty, when I don't know who my cash game QB is going to be, but I don't hate going to Carr or Teddy at all. Like, if it's between going to one of those two and, like, who are the other guys, and like Cam Newton, and I have to spend $200 somewhere else on another receiver or running back, give me those guys all day. Teddy Bridgewater, offensive line versus defensive line matchup. It is negative for Teddy, but not that much. I mean, this Oakland pass rush isn't like that great. I mean, Max Crosby's really good, but it's probably about it. But where I love Teddy Bridgewater is the wide receivers versus this just trash can of a secondary in Oakland. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel. Very, very underrated wide receiving core this year, but DJ Moore is going to be a top-end receiver this year in just the league. And he fits Teddy Bridgewater's style of play perfectly. I love going Teddy. DJ Moore stacks. Robbie Anderson stacks, maybe not as much, but DJ Moore definitely. And then you have Trayvon Mullen, number 1 corner, rookie Damon Arnett, and then LaMarcus Joyner. These guys were terrible last year. They're not good corners. Damon Arnett's a rookie who should not have been a first-round draft pick, was like a projected late second, early third, and got reached on by Las Vegas in the first round. Who's he guarding? Like, Robbie Anderson can torch him. Like, if he's guarding DJ Moore, even better. I'd love rookies in week 1. Rookie cornerbacks going up against number 1 receivers. Love it. Unless it's Jeff Okudah. That's the one I'm a little bit weary on. But Teddy Bridgewater to DJ Moore, this is just going to be a great stack. They grade out as they're barely less than my Eagles versus receivers versus cornerbacks, but they're right there below it. I love going there. Ian Thomas probably not going to get a ton of usage, so I'm not really worried about that, and he's an awful matchup anyway against Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton, but not too worried about that one as much anyway. And then Jonathan Abram and Eric Harris, who were bad last year. I love these two. This game script, perfect for both of them. Could be a shootout. This could be the game that wins someone the tournament this week in week 1. So I'm really excited to play Carolina Vegas stacks. Up next, we have Tyrod Taylor for the LA Chargers. I mean, the Bengals defense suck, but like this just isn't a game that screams upside for me. It's going to be, I believe, a negative matchup on the offense versus defensive line. Yeah, pretty negative. Cincinnati's defensive line isn't as bad as people think it is, and that's the one weakness in the Chargers offensively is their offensive line. The rest they're loaded everywhere in talent, but offensive line's not good. And Mike Williams is also out, so Keenan Allen's the number 1 guy. I think Keenan Allen's a good play in DraftKings anyway, but probably not in stacks. I just don't think this game's going to be super high scoring. That's why I don't really want to go there. He does draw a tough matchup versus William Jackson, but it's a slightly positive matchup overall, receivers versus cornerbacks. Hunter Henry, Tyrod Taylor's never been a guy to throw tight ends, so I don't think Hunter Henry's someone I really want to get to as much. And then if we go into the game script, I mean, it's just a lower total, 44 total as of now. That stuff's all going to change. But as of now, a lower total, I don't think it's going to go up that much. If it goes up, it might go down. They're favored, so probably more of a running game, more of an Austin Eckler game maybe, so not someone I really want to go to as much. So just not – the matchup's positive, but just the game script just doesn't make me want to go to him as much. Like, I told you, there's guys just already X'd out. Tyrod Taylor's one of those guys, and Burrow is too, week 1. Burrow's in a tough matchup. This Chargers defense is going to be very good this year. Very good. $1,500. The Chargers right now, they remind me a lot of Cleveland last year. Like, a lot. They need offensive line help. Offense is very good, and defense looks good as well. Let's see. It's going to be a very negative matchup for the offensive line against the defensive line. Yeah, I mean, this defensive line's loaded. We have Melvin Ingram, Linval Joseph, and Joey Bosa. Just absolute studs in the defensive line. The receivers are A.J. Green, rookie T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. I think John Ross, wouldn't be surprised to see him get the start over T. Higgins week 1, but we'll see. Right now it is T. Higgins listed as a starter, so we'll see about that. Tyler Boyd in the slot. And they draw horrible matchups too. Casey Hayward Jr., Chris Harris Jr., Desmond King. That's the best triple cornerback tandem in the entire league. For sure. I don't even think it's a question. Those three, elite. They're very good. So I definitely do like going to... I don't like going to any of those receivers. I don't like going to those stacks. They don't utilize a tight end, really, so I'm not worried too much about that. I got to change that. Derwin James is out, but still really not too worried there about that one. Yeah. So I'm not really worried about going to... I just don't want to go to Joe Burrow. I just think the matchup's really tough. Rookie quarterbacks week 1 don't usually just go off unless they're like... I just don't like the matchup, man. I don't like his receiver. I really don't like the offensive line versus defensive line matchup at all, and I really don't like the wide receiver versus quarterback matchups. And those are probably the two most important. So I don't really want to go to Joe Burrow really at all. Another one I have crossed out. Okay, New Orleans Saints, Tampa Bay Bucks. This is another one where people are gonna try this game. I mean, it's two way better teams. But do you remember week 1 last year when everyone wanted to stack San Francisco and Tampa? And it just didn't work out because San Francisco's defense ended up being, well, we know, like the best defense in the league. This is what this reminds me of this year. Because everyone's, I mean, it is a high game total, and I know, but like if I won't hate betting the under on this game. These are two good defenses. No one really realizes Tampa's got a very, very sneakily good defense. And these two quarterbacks are expensive to go to. Breeze and Brady. Like, let's just go through it all. Offensive line for New Orleans, I'm pretty sure that's going to grade out. That grades out pretty well against that defensive line, but it's still a good defensive line. Like, it's not great, but like you have Vita Vea, who's very good. Shaq Barrett, sack leader last year, and Ndamukong Suh, Jason Pierre-Paul, past their primes, but were good when they were in their primes. And then you got the receivers, Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Traquan Smith. Michael Thomas, just elite wide receiver, offensive player of the year last year. But then you got to match up against Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis. Like, I'm not really too worried. Like, Michael Thomas should still be able to, like, do really good things. But these are two good up-and-coming corners. They, down the stretch last year, I think after week 10, like, led the league in, like, tip passes or whatever. Like, they're very good. These two are an up-and-coming secondary, along with Antoine Winfield. So, I just don't... And then Jared Cook, Levante David is a top 2 linebacker in the NFL right now. Top 2. You may not agree because, he's on Tampa, but Levante David is elite. He's been one of the best linebackers over the last, 5 to 6 years. And then Devin White, he had a rough year last year, but as a high draft pick, could maybe turn around this year. So I don't like the Jared Cook matchup at all. That's going to be a bad one for me. But then Antoine Winfield in the safety position as a rookie, I think he should have a good year. So right now, I mean, yeah, Drew Brees grades out nicely, but I think that defense is better than what everybody's suggesting. I think that defense is going to be good. I don't think this game's going to be as high scoring, and if these two are going to get a ton of ownership, I don't want to go there. And then on the other side with Brady, this matchup actually ends up grading out better because of the freaking receivers. But offensive versus defensive line, you have a slightly positive matchup for Tampa Bay Bucks. But then on wide receiver, Mike Evans and just Chris Godwin are just freaking insane. They got to go up against Marshawn Lattimore, who's good but not great. But the one thing is, Marshawn Lattimore historically has done very well against Mike Evans. Historically done very well. And then Chris Godwin against Janoris Jenkins, and then P.J. Williams in the slot against Scotty Miller. Right now, Chris Godwin's listed as outside number 2 receiver, but we know he played in the slot a ton last year. And if we get Chris Godwin in the slot against P.J. Williams, P.J. Williams is like the worst slot corner in the league. So that's the spot to abuse them with. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of people are going to go, and then there's Gronk. who I just don't think is going to be out there a ton. I'm really not going to play him this week. I'm waiting to see on Rob Gronkowski. I don't know what his usage is going to be or anything, unless we hear something, obviously. I'm more interested to go to the Brady side and the Brees side. Like, they both grade out well. I just think people are going to play the Brees side more and the Michael Thomas side more because, Tampa Bay, they were one of the worst pass defense in the league last year. Yeah, they were weeks 1 through 10, and then when Vernon Hargreaves, trash ass, got traded, they started playing Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis more in the secondary, and they took off. That defense was very good down the stretch last year. It's a high total game, and I want to go to Brady more because I just think that I think that I really like this Tampa Bay offense. And I think Evans is fine, but I love Tom Brady to Chris Godwin stacks week 1. Love it. Chris Godwin was someone, every time they played New Orleans last year, I just was like, Chris Godwin every time. Just torched them both games. So, definitely someone I want to go to is Brady more than Brees, but especially if Brees is going to get more ownership because people want to play people against the Bucs. I think they're going to be a little disappointed this year. I could be wrong, but that's just what my thought is on that. A lot of people are going to tell you to play Drew Brees this week, and I think it's still a fine option. He's probably not going to hurt you. He's Drew Brees, so. But I want to look at the Tom Brady side more. And then we'll close this one out with the San Francisco 49ers, Arizona Cardinals game, week 1. I want to watch. This is one of my favorite games to watch. This division is going to be so good this year, and I just want to watch all their games. But I don't want to play Kyler Murray all week 1. I don't want to play either of these guys because I don't ever play let's just go through Kyler Murray. Our offensive line still isn't really that good, and yeah, Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, Eric Armstead, D Ford, and DJ Jones. It's pretty good. I don't know, they're good. So not a good matchup for the offensive line. But the receivers might be worse. DeAndre Hopkins, very good. But then you got Kirk and then old-ass Fitzgerald, who really isn't that good anymore. But DeAndre Hopkins is elite still. But he's got a matchup against Richard Sherman this week. And that actually grades out negatively for me. Richard Sherman was the best corner according to PFF last year, and we'll see if that stands up. I'm sure he's still going to be solid, so I don't really love going there that much. I just don't think the receivers are in that great of a spot. I don't think Hopkins gets targeted as much this year. There's more options on that offense because Andy Isabella isn't even a starter, and he's going to get targets. Dan Arnold at tight end is going to get targets. There's just guys that are just out there going to get targets. Right now, Fred Warner is on the COVID list, but that was a week ago, so he might be back on Sunday. That's why I got to watch the injury video on Saturday. Be sure to check that one out. Just Fred Warner, Quan Alexander, Drake Greenlaw. What a linebacking core that is. Oh, my God. It's one of the best in the league. Just terrible matchup there. And then Jaquiski Tartt and Jimmy Ward in the secondary. It's just a negative matchup. One of the worst matchups overall in the slate for me is Kyler Murray. Yeah, they're going to be playing from behind. It's a positive game script, but they ain't torching that defense, bro. It's just not happening. That defense is going to be great again this year, and I just don't see any reason to go to. Jimmy Garoppolo, he grades out as one of my best matchups. But I don't want to play him, man. We know this team's just gonna run. I'm not even gonna go through the matchups. It's positive everywhere because Arizona's defense really isn't good. If you're making a stack with Garoppolo, it's Kittle. That's it. And if Samuel plays, then yeah, but that's really it. I just don't. They're not a passing offense, and I don't expect them to get behind. If they get behind, and Jimmy Garoppolo might actually end up being a very good play. But at this point, Raheem Mostert's probably going to run all over them. So I just don't think I'm really interested in getting too much of this game, honestly. I think maybe a little bit of George Kittle just in lineups and maybe some Raheem Mostert or going to Tevin Coleman, who's going to be hella owned. But that's really about it. This is a long video, guys. I'm going to try to make them shorter. This first NFL one I've ever made, so I'll try to make them shorter in the future, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys really enjoyed this because I know I enjoyed recording. I just love talking about football. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe on the channel. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a great day.